Jenny Han, I wish you the coldest of sheets every single night for the rest of your life. I want to break down this scene and talk about Belly's cognitive dissonance and how we are starting to see that careful facade slowly start to crumble, just like we saw Conrad's this episode, and how this actually ties back to the Peach scene, and where I think we are going to get two major moments in the next episode with potentially Belly's point of view. Make sure you're following because I'm posting a ton of analysis on the show and the episodes. The ADHD hyperfixation is real. In this scene, they're sitting at the dinner table and Belly spills a little bit of wine and she tells Conrad it's totally killing him not to clean it up. She's laughing at him. We know he does tend to be a little bit of a clean freak and he cleans up after everybody figuratively and physically. It's a part of his golden child parentified role. Of course, he's so in love with her and he has his guard down right now, so he didn't even notice. But I do think it's important to point out why she asked. But there is a reason why she said that. This girl is trying so hard to rationalize this scene as to not mean what she thinks it could mean. If you don't want to hear about the book, scroll away. But in the book, she explained that this is the most intimate thing that she ever experienced. Even after we saw that flashback of the guest bedroom scene, this was the most intimate thing she had ever experienced. And so we know she's starting to experience that discomfort of recognizing maybe she was wrong about Conrad, or maybe Conrad's feelings do still exist, even though the last that she had known, they did not. He had told her to go be with Jeremiah, and he told her he didn't mean any of it. So she's figuring out a way to casually throw this in there to try to connect the dots as to why he cleaned up her face in the Peach scene. But not only in the Peach scene, but here, it has nothing to do with cleanliness and everything to do with Conrad just being madly in love with her. He cleaned up her face in the Peach scene because it was an intimate thing to do. It was sweet and caring and loving, and it had nothing to do with cleanliness. And he totally missed the wine being spilled here because he's too focused on her. I think going into episode 6, we are going to see Belly's point of view of this scene as we did read it in the books that way. Because now that we've seen the unraveling of Conrad, we need to start to slowly see the unraveling of Belly, her cognitive dissonance, and her inability to run away from the discomfort of recognizing that these feelings do exist. I would love to see what she was thinking here and what she wanted to ask him. I do think that it was something along the lines of his feelings for her and ask him if they still exist. The castle is starting to crumble because look, Conrad starts to walk away. Belly looks over at him. Jer catches her looking and he goes to look over at Conrad and Belly has to look away. Jeremiah might be bougie, but he isn't stupid.
Okay, let's talk about Jeremiah. I know, I don't like to do it either, but we've got to talk about it. Because when he comes home, honey, I'm home. And it literally says door closes because it's closing on Conrad and Belly's perfect day together. He comes in and he grabs Belly and starts shooting daggers at Conrad. Because he just walked into both of them getting along. He liked it when Conrad was away. He liked it when he was avoiding talking to them. And now here they are drinking wine, having dinner, and he does not like one bit of this. Jeremiah's been acting oblivious on purpose. He knows how Conrad feels. He knows Conrad's not comfortable with this, but he's just gonna pretend like everything's okay. That's why he goes, so, are you gonna be my best man or what? So this little act that Jeremiah has been putting on through these 5 seasons of just kind of being oblivious to why Conrad would care about anything, it's all pretend. He knows how Conrad felt about Belly. He knows how he does probably feel about the situation. He is his brother. When Jeremiah wanted to pull Conrad aside separately, and he mentions that on the phone to Belly, he mentions it in the car in the garden ceremony to Belly, I never thought for one second that was because he cared about Conrad's feelings. He wants to rub it in his face, and he wants to make sure as a test that Belly is comfortable saying it in front of him and confronting this head on. And this is confirmation. He is not okay with the situation. It's jealousy, jealousy, jealousy. And Conrad clocks it. He literally clocks it because when Jeremiah walks over after finding out that knight in shining armor Conrad was helping Belly all day with wedding planning, he says, wow, you're the best man around, right? He like slaps him on the back. And Conrad says, yeah, do you want my food too? Basically, do you want my sloppy seconds too? Like, what else of mine would you like, Jer? And it was so subtle that Belly did not notice, but these two know. They're brothers. They know how to fight dirty in front of the parents without getting caught. Because that's 100% the reason why he was like, oh, isn't this great news that the most important day of your life, Belly, is no longer in your control? My dad's going to pay for everything. His mistress is going to plan the wedding. Look at all this free time you have. You don't have to stay in Cousins. You don't have to be stuck here with my brother. You can come stay with me in Boston and sit in my dad's small apartment while I work 9 to 5. To go back to that comment Conrad made, I got it a little bit wrong, but he says, and you can have some of my food too if you want, gagged. To which Jeremiah responds, no, you know what? I'll just share with Bells. And sure, we can give Jeremiah the benefit of the doubt. Conrad got a little too close to his fiancée today, so maybe he has a reason to be jealous. But considering the history of how Jeremiah has interfered with this relationship so much, and how he has no regard for anybody else's feelings or needs most of the time, I tend to not have any sympathy for him. Tagging Michaela down below because she just posted a video talking about Jenny Han's article about directing this scene and how they had to wait for the exact moment that these red flowers behind them were in bloom, and also the sun, so that it was such a beautiful scene that they had to like reschedule it 3 times. And the flowers behind them are red poppies, and I know this because during the one of the Amazon events that they had for the Summer Turned Pretty season 3, they had 3 separate tiers of bucketed flowers. The top one, you can't see it in this picture, but it's Team Conrad, and it's red poppies. And then the sunflower is Jeremiah, which I'm confused about, but we're not getting into that. And then Team Belly was the hydrangeas. Now, why red poppies for Conrad? Poppies are kind of symbolic with like World War II and loss and grieving, but they're also symbolic of, yep, you guessed it, dreams. Because does anybody remember the famous scene in The Wizard of Oz when Dorothy and her friends lie down in a field of poppies and they fall asleep? Only then does Glinda put the snow on them and they wake up. So if we think about red, obviously we know what that means. Poppies, a lost love, I'm in a dreamlike state. Put all these thoughts together. A passionate, dreamlike love, a love that feels too good to be real, longing for someone lost, emotionally or physically, the kind of love that haunts or lingers like a vivid dream. I'm literally going to crash out with all these dream things that are always happening. You two are not a dream, you're reality. Jenny Han, I am now constantly daydreaming about the summer I turned pretty, and I cannot stop. I'm preparing some videos that I'm going to post throughout the week. I've just been really busy with my real 9-to-5 job. But I might need to touch grass, but hold on. Because why did I go down a rabbit hole that had nothing to do with what I was preparing just to see if the math was mathing, because I'm a Swiftie and I'm insane? And why is it that every time Belly and Conrad are together, Venus is an evening star? This is one of those things where I highly doubt Jenny researched all of this stuff, but it's interesting nonetheless. So if you look at that quote being in season 2, I did everything past from season 2 on, because season 1 didn't have that. So obviously they wouldn't have done that at that point. But starting with October 2022, when Halloween, when Conrad shows up with candy, in October of 2022, it was transitioning to an evening star. And then it was a full-blown evening star by December of 2022, which is Christmas 1.0, snow on the beach scene. And then we have the current events of season 2, which is like 1 week in time, somewhere in May 2023. It's an evening star. And then by the time August 2023 rolls around, it begins the morning star phase. And that is when Conrad would be leaving around August, right, for college. And he's going to Stanford. So he's going away for the next 4 years. So then we come back to season 3, and December 2026, because of the 4-year time jump, Christmas 2.0, evening star. By May and June of 2027, when the engagement announcement timeline is happening, morning star. By August 2027, when the tentative wedding date of Jeremiah and Belly, it's going to go back to an evening star. So, to quote Conrad Fisher, gives me some kind of hope or something.
I am screaming and completely unwell at episode 5, so I want to rapid fire my thoughts. I'm a girl that marinates. I'll be thinking about this episode for the next couple of days and probably put out deeper analysis. The more we get of the season, the more dots we're connecting throughout the whole series. I love connecting those dots. I thought it'd be fun to just share the things that stuck out to me while I was watching this episode. So it was by far my favorite episode of this series. Jenny Han, I might name my first child after you. You delivered, you gave the people what they want. Let's get into it. Conrad giving us this line. It's like being hit by a thunderbolt. This is a family show. Aftermath of electricity. We're seeing that theme again. Are you kidding me with what he's wearing? It is so notebook coded. Also, she hugged him and he can't stop thinking about it for a week. She hugged him. Lose them if you try. This is what he says to Adam on the phone. This reveals, I think, Conrad's intention. He feels that way about himself. If he speaks up, he will lose them. I thought it was interesting he talked about the hero theme with his dad. Hear it later, his conversation with Belly. I'll probably deep dive on that later. Am I asking Taylor, have you talked to her? Is she freaking out? Sir, aren't you engaged to her? Do you not talk to her? Makes me think that Belly is not talking to him about the budget. Shocker. Conrad leaving cereal out for her. I know it's small, but it's sweet. She said she didn't want to eat his food, and he said, why didn't you ask then? And I think that that's interesting because later in the kitchen, she says, can I ask you a question? I think it's going to be like a moment, but then she just asks him something small. I think these moments parallel each other. This is whatever I buy, you can have. Please. Train leaves her cousins, and Jeremiah is still at work. Why am I not shocked that this man has no time management skills? Bike flashback, I do think it's significant that Jer says, you're too slow. I will deep dive on that later. So the words that young Belly says, she says, promise you won't let go. And then she says, you can let go now. I think that is a deeper metaphor, all talking about her relationship with Conrad. Promise you won't let go. They're infinity, they're forever. And then they break up and she says, you can let go now. This whole season and the last couple of years have been him letting her go. Jeremiah saying the numbers aren't adding up in his job. Little spidey senses went off. First of all, who's putting this man in charge of accounting? Adam Fisher, I need to speak with you. I don't know. I just want to watch this line because I'm like, was it twice? Was it more than twice in Cabo? I don't know. We'll see. It says you take the bags, I'll take the bike, please. Belly. Jeremiah's got you operating in your masculine energy, Belly. It's okay, you don't have to take the big bike with Conrad. He's got it, girl. Belly is suppressing her memories of Conrad. She forgot that he collected stamps. And then as he's bringing it up, it's like the memories are coming back for her. I do think this is a little metaphor embedded in the dialogue. Belly says, remember when Jer stole one of those to send a postcard and you cried? And Conrad says, that was a very rare stamp. And Belly is a very rare girl. And that's what they're talking about. I don't want to see this man cry one more second on my screen. Suggest the hydrangeas. He's helping her solve the problem. So, husband. Whole cacao thing, and Belly's like, I like milk chocolate. I fear it's so obvious that her and Jer are just not compatible even on little things. And he doesn't compromise. Conrad solves the cake problem with her again. The second problem he's solving with her about this wedding, and he offers to pick it up. You're joking. I did not like Jeremiah's tone when he said, cacao is the bean. Are you talking to her like she's stupid? Because, he was. I'm saying I'll put it on the card and I'll pay it off later. This is how he handles everything in his life. He acts impulsively and then he's like, I'll deal with it later. I am unwell at Belly, feeling safe enough to cry in front of Conrad in the car. Conrad could roast Jeremiah in this moment after he hears them get off the phone, and all he says is, I'm sure it's killing Jer not to be here. Come on, he's the better man. Any chance Jeremiah has to talk smack about Conrad, he's taking that opportunity. And Conrad would be so valid to roast him in this moment, and he doesn't. Like saying, I'm feeling like I'm carrying this all by myself and doing this alone. Girl, you are. And that's a picture of how your life is going to be if you marry this man. The Harry Styles song was perfection. And then we have them connecting on sports psychology and Conrad going to therapy. This is way too long, so I'm just going to make a part 2. And this is part 2 of my rapid fire thoughts for episode 5 of The Summer I Turned Pretty. You see her face when he said he was going to therapy. Amazing job, Lola. He was talking about how she stumbled upon sports psychology and kind of came about it in a roundabout way. I think that's a small little metaphor with a deeper meaning. She's gonna find Connie in a roundabout way. Gotta get his brother out of the way. I thought it was interesting that Belly said she was planning on grad school. I always thought like when Laurel's like, just wait till after school. I wonder if for them it's like, wait till grad school. So I'm like, Belly has one more year. That's really not that long. I was actually crying at this. Conrad was teasing her for being a bad driver. And do you guys remember who taught her how to drive? That man can't be trusted with anything. Conrad noticing that she wears heels now and still bites her nails. I want to make a whole deep dive on that. And at this point, I can't help but notice the pattern that Belly always tries to lighten the mood when Jeremiah is down, and Conrad is always trying to lighten the mood when Belly is down. At any point when this girl is disappointed, while they're out shopping, preparing for things for her wedding that he's not marrying her in, he is always trying to make her feel better. Additionally, when he gets excited about those fake flowers and she's like, oh, do you like them? Like, oh, you're serious? And he's like, yeah. Everything about her disposition changes. He makes her excited about things as mundane and not exciting and maybe not great, like fake flowers. After that whole thing, she lights up. I love what Belly said when she said, getting fired is the best thing to happen to you. You're right where you're supposed to be. In fact, you two are right where you're supposed to be. We see that hero theme come up again. He's just saying he doesn't have to be the hero all the time. And I just love how these two push and pull all the time. They just give and take. They give and take. She said one day you'll be running the oncology department at Mass General. I just felt like that was important, so I wrote it down. I wonder if we'll see that. Oh, and now we're getting into the peach scene territory. This girl doesn't even say anything. He just senses that she wants to go. And he says, you want to stop by? He doesn't even have to say anything. Just knows her. He's just attuned to her. I already passed it and he's like, oh, nope, we're gonna turn around. Potentially also another metaphor. Not too late, Belly. You can turn this whole thing around. In fact, Conrad will turn this whole thing around for you. Also, I'm disappointed at her. What do you mean you didn't remember he's allergic to peaches? I think this is really important because remember, Belly is an unreliable narrator. I don't think she's remembered everything accurately. What do you mean you didn't know he was allergic? I see that whole Peach scene as kind of like this dream state, this dream moment. This perfect Peach. She gets a second one. There's no way it's going to be just as good as the first one. I do wonder if there's deeper meaning in this whole thing when it comes to her and Conrad's love story. And he says, let's test that. Was it as good? The way he says this is so earnest. It is so sweet. All the lighting, the warmth of the scene. Conrad is the sun. Belly is being reminded that Conrad is the sun to her. And we can see it. It's subtle, but we can see it. It's all coming back to her. He brought the bags in. Belly just left the bags in the car for Conrad to bring in. The bags for her wedding. It's so airport dad. It's so when you're with the right guy, your brain can just turn off. He's like, I got it. I can't believe he brought the bags in. Her saying she wants to season the chicken and then replace the quinoa with the fries, I just think it's a picture of how they balance each other so well. I think Conrad did not even notice that she spilled the wine. She's like giving him a hard time about him wanting to clean it up. Girl, he didn't even notice. He was just looking at you. I love their dynamic because they've always teased each other and given each other a hard time, and they challenge each other even playfully because they just know it's safe. Oh, and then we're getting into the flashback. I'm unwell. Conrad Fisher says, don't worry about prom while his mom is dying. Knowing that that's something that she's worried about. Just saying like, I got it. And that scene, all I have to say is, under Laurel Park's roof? Damn. Jenny? It was just sweet, pure intimacy. I couldn't help but be reminded when Jeremiah said, you texted me to come over and take care of business. As if that's a means to an end. So romantic. Conrad can feel Belly's fears about prom, and then she also can feel his fears about Susanna. And they both assure each other. I might even say that these two display a little bit more ESP than the other two. I think the other two, it's a farce. I'll talk about that at some point. Not the whole prom thing though, and now thinking about Belly saying you have to be the hero all the time. I'm frustrated with her because I'm like, why did you crucify him for forgetting the corsage and not showing up perfectly at prom when you sense what was happening with Susanna? Maybe that just shows that Belly has now grown. He comes to after the scene and he says, what if I hadn't pushed her away like I always do? How many times would we have, girl, I thought he was gonna say something else, but this boy says eating dinner together, just like this. Literally, it's so sweet, it's so pure. This is way too long. I have to make a part 3. I'm so sorry.
I think this has to be one of the most important conversations in this entire show because Conrad gave us all of the context that we need about why things ended between him and Belly. We learned from this episode that Conrad thinks Belly deserves the world and he will practically kill himself to make sure that she is happy. He admits that he really struggles with looking weak in front of Belly and that that's his biggest mistake. Luckily, in this scene, he starts opening up to her, but in the past, that has not been the case. So in this new scene that took place in the guest bedroom, we learn more context of what was happening right before prom. I think that this scene is taking place the night after they have their conversation in the kitchen in season 2. You can see the sweater on the nightstand from this exact scene right here, where Conrad tells Belly that the doctors are putting Susanna on new medicine, and Belly says that she's sure that just means that she's doing better. And then from this new scene, we learn that Conrad tried to tell Belly what was going on, but he didn't want to ruin the part of her that believed that everything was fine. He really wanted to just protect her because she has faith that good things will happen to good people. Now we know for sure that Belly had no idea what was going on with Conrad or Susanna at prom. And Conrad felt extra horrible because on top of Susanna being so close to dying, knew how excited Belly was for prom and he wanted to give her the perfect night. He felt like he was just ruining it for her and disappointing her, and that she does not deserve to be disappointed because he thinks that she deserves the world. So now he's trying a new approach and actually opening up to Belly, and he's explaining to her how he got fired at work for one mistake, which is essentially the same as how he got broken up with at the prom for one mistake. He actually tells her, that day at work, I was so scared that I was gonna fuck up, and then I did. And that's how he felt at prom too, because he wanted to give Belly a perfect night, and he was so scared that he was gonna ruin it for her. And then his worst fears actually came true. Dr. Namazi kind of clocked him on this and said, you're not ready for this. You might see it as one mistake, but you really just don't know your limits. I hope this helps him understand that he needs to deal with his emotions like Agnes said, or else they will come back and bite him. That he sees this still as one of his biggest mistakes of his life because he's still reminiscing about it and wondering what would happen if he didn't mess up 4 years ago. If we think of this in the context of them being together, Conrad's like, maybe I'm not cut out for it, and Belly's like, maybe you need to just stop being a little bitch. Hopefully as a parallel to Conrad eventually finally speaking his mind and telling Belly how he really feels.
Some of you are really confusing me, because what do you mean Conrad has no right to be feeling this upset and down and hurt by the fact that he's not with Belly because he hasn't said anything? Why would he say anything? Yes, he's in love with her. Yes, he wants to be with her. He has no right to say that to a woman who is engaged to his brother. So he's going to suffer in silence. I don't even feel bad for him because he's not telling her. Why would you tell her that? Why would he tell her that? Would you do that to your brother if they were engaged to somebody else? But then people will go on this in the same breath be like, I can't believe that he was imagining having sex with his brother's fiance like they didn't date in that memory he had, during that memory that he had. Like, y'all don't make no sense to me. Until he finds out about Cabo, I'm giving him no passes to say some nonsense like that. He should not be saying that. When he finds out that his brother did something similar to what his dad did to Susanna, and he just blows his lid and is like, you know what, you don't deserve her, and I'm finally going to be selfish and tell her I want to be with her and that I'm in love with her. Until that happens, he shouldn't be saying anything. Let him suffer in silence. Let him help them and fulfill the promise he made to his mom. But what are y'all talking about? See, for me, it's not, I don't understand why people are still Team Jeremiah. I don't understand how you were ever Team Jeremiah. And that's not to say Jeremiah doesn't have great qualities and he isn't a great person. It's just, for me, the chemistry was never chemistrying with Belly and Jeremiah, but it was always chemistrying with Belly and Conrad. And I know that's not a word, at least I don't think it is. For me, watching Belly and Jeremiah in any romantic capacity is like watching paint dry on a wall, and you think it'd be the opposite because Jeremiah brings all this energy and Conrad's more of a reserved person. But nope, for me, whenever I see them, it's just, whenever I see Belly and Conrad, it's like locked in. And I can't explain it. And it's not like I don't understand their point of view. Like, I want Belly to be with someone who's very open and honest with how they feel and isn't emotionally unavailable. Like, I get that. And my solution to that is, let's give Conrad some character development. Oh, look, they did. I understand this is a love triangle. You're supposed to have two different teams. I'm not coming against that. It's just, for me, one of the teams just never made sense. Chemistry-wise and narratively-wise. Belly has never been over Conrad. That's literally what they're trying to tell us here in season 3. And I think we need Belly and Jeremiah together. I do, or else we wouldn't have this story. I just don't see, as viewers, how we felt anything for Belly and Jeremiah. Romantically. They're great friends. But obviously my perspective and the way I see it is not necessarily the intention of Jenny Han, because if we didn't have people rooting for each side, then it would be pretty boring, I feel like. And although I don't understand why people are Team Jeremiah in the sense of wanting Jeremiah with Belly, I don't care if you're Team Jeremiah and you just love Jeremiah, that's fine. It's necessary that people have these opposing views because what would I have to talk about? Nope, no emotional cheating, and I don't think we're going to see any emotional cheating until we actually hear Belly's POV to where she's saying things like, I'm still in love with this man. She's literally doing everything within her power to push down and deny the feelings that we all know she clearly has for Conrad. For instance, after the peach scene, she's like, I'm gonna go get some peaches for Jared. We as viewers get to see how that affected her and how she clearly still has feelings for Conrad, but she is denying them. Conrad is actively trying to help her with the wedding. He's solving problems. He's reassuring her that Jared really wants to be here and he wishes he could. Does he still love her? Yes. Does he want to be with her? Yes. But he's literally putting himself through torture just because he thinks that's what's best for both of them. He thinks that Belly wants to be with him. And he loves his brother. He wants to give him support, just like he promised his mom he would on her deathbed. And here's where you're mistaken. If the roles were reversed and it was Jeremiah and Belly and she was engaged to Conrad, this wouldn't even be a thing. Because when Bella's with Conrad, Jeremiah's not a second thought romantically. She's not suppressing feelings for him. And if for some reason that was the case, I would say break up with Conrad. If you're still in love with Jeremiah, why are you wasting this man's time? Why are you engaged to him? Why are you about to marry him? Like, what are you talking about? If this was truly more of a conflicted love story, a love triangle, then maybe I'd understand the argument. When you watch this show fully through, and like I said before, with honest eyes, you know it's always been Conrad, and that's who the end game is. Like, if it's not, I will be genuinely shocked. I don't know if anybody else thought this when they watched this scene, but in the first 4 episodes, we had a few moments with Belly and Conrad, very few, but each time they looked at each other like star-crossed lovers. And although us as viewers knew that this was a look of love, every time they looked at each other, it was them loving the other person, not them knowing that the other person felt the same. I think this moment changed that. I think this is the first moment in 4 years where they realized we both feel the same way about each other, and it scared the crap out of Belly. Obviously, we see Conrad after this saying he's gonna walk to the car because Belly goes, I'm gonna get some peaches for Jared, and he's like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? We were not thinking the same thing there. This is not my story, this is Belly and Jer, or something like that. And Belly, we can see her, but he can't. She's visibly uncomfortable, but not uncomfortable because she didn't like it, but because she did. I think this is gonna be the beginning of Belly outwardly, but not intentionally showing affection for Conrad. She's not gonna be able to help herself because she knows in this moment, even if she doesn't wanna believe it, that he has feelings for her still. This scene changed the course of the rest of the season. Regardless of if you think it's romantic or not, this scene changed everything. Ooh, guys, it's getting juicy.
You know, one thing I started thinking about too, how Belly actually is constantly pushing Conrad away. I think the reason why they can't be together is because they both push each other away, but for different reasons. Conrad pushes her away because he's scared that he's gonna hurt her, that he's not enough for her. He doesn't want to disappoint her. He also knows that he is emotionally not well. So say whatever you want to say about Conrad, but the fact that Conrad can self-reflect like that says a lot about him. But Belly pushes Conrad away because she's scared of him rejecting her. I think she secretly believes that Conrad is out of her league. She doesn't believe that Conrad can love her the way that she loves him. She actually believes in her head that she loves Conrad more than he could ever love her, and that he could do better.
There are so many examples of her pushing Conrad away. In the first season especially, there were a lot of times where her and Conrad might be getting into like an intimate scene, but instead of her kind of going for it and shooting her shot, she kind of pushes him away. For instance, when they throw her into the pool and then she pulls him in with her, he holds onto her for a little too long. She gets uncomfortable, so she pushes him away. When she is night swimming and then she sees him sitting on the edge of the pool, he's kind of flirting with her, but instead of flirting back, she kind of insults him. When he brings her the good muffins and then she decides that she doesn't want any, basically telling him, hey, I actually don't want you. When he asks her to go get muffins with him and instead she chooses Cameron. In season 2, the big one is that she breaks up with him. She got too scared. She thought that he was going to break up with her, so she just did it first. When she's helping him study and then he asks her, well, what do I get? That was a perfect chance to like flirt back with him, but instead she doesn't. And every single time this season that her and Connor get a little bit close, get a little bit too intimate, get a little too uncomfortable, she brings up Jer as the icebreaker, as if to remind herself too that like she's with Jer, she cannot be with Conrad. I feel like so many times we're blaming Conrad for the whole back and forth. We also have to remember that it takes two to tango, but Belly for sure plays a huge part in the reason why they aren't together.